This was Brian Talley's life just a few years ago. Husband and father, Marine Corps veteran, successful business owner. But this is Brian now, spending much of each day in this beat-up recliner, the only relief, he says, from unrelenting pain.
This is where I live. This is the only thing that takes the pressure off of my spine.
There's not a day that goes by where I'm not in pain.
Brian served 4 years in the United States Marine Corps, but calls this the fight of his life. The downward spiral began in January 2016. Severe back pain, night sweats, urgent requests to the VA for help. Twice, Brian went to the VA's emergency room in Loma Linda, but twice he did not get to see a doctor, and twice no one ordered a simple blood test.
I was on the floor. I was in traumatic pain. Well, I was literally in tears. They gave me an x-ray, and the VA ER in Loma Linda diagnosed me with having a low back sprain. They told me to go stretch.
He was seen by a nurse practitioner both times, but again, no doctor. Brian followed up with his primary care physician at the VA clinic in Murrieta.
She looked at the 2 ER reports, and she agreed with the original diagnosis, the 2 diagnoses that the ER nurses gave me. She told me to stretch. She ordered more pills.
His primary care doctor did request a consult with orthopedics, but Brian says he was unable to get an appointment. Scared and in debilitating pain, he and his wife paid out of pocket for their own MRI.
My wife made the decision. She goes, "You're down 40 pounds. You have these crazy night sweats. You can't use the bathroom properly. There's something wrong. This doesn't happen to a 39-year-old guy."
The MRI revealed severe spinal stenosis, a narrowing of the spinal canal, and edema, a swelling of the spinal canal. Once Brian gave VA doctors the MRI that he paid for, the VA finally agreed that this was more than just a back sprain. Brian needed surgery. But again, more delays. The VA could not fit Brian in for surgery for 9 months.
And if I would have went another month and a half, I would have died. I would have died in my chair.
A 9-month wait was unacceptable to the Talleys. Brian pushed for an earlier surgery date, and the VA agreed to pay for a surgeon outside of the VA.
So had you waited another 6 months, that would have been disastrous to his bone.
Dr. Jean-Jacques Abbott-Bowles says Brian's MRI, combined with other symptoms, including difficulty urinating, were an ominous sign.
Well, the bone at the very bottom could have collapsed down. He could have had permanent neurological problems. He could have been paralyzed.
And once on the operating table, the news went from bad to worse. An aggressive staph infection was eating away at Brian's spine.
This kind of bacteria, if not taken care of, can get into the blood, cause what's known as sepsis, and ultimately result in system-wide failure of the organs and ultimately death.
Was this infection eating away at the bone?
Yes, it was. A term that we sometimes use is moth-eaten.
Dr. Abbott-Bowles tells Eyewitness News a blood test by the VA likely could have spotted the infection before Brian suffered permanent injury. But again, that never happened. Severe damage to Brian's nerves led to erectile dysfunction, urinary incontinence, bowel issues, along with herniated discs in his neck, constant pain.
It's like you've got an ice pick, that's being driven through your neck.
Once Brian realized the damage was permanent, he filed a medical malpractice claim against the VA.
So they misdiagnosed me, not once, but twice, but 3 times.
Brian says the VA attorney handling his tort claim initially told him a financial settlement was likely, and that an expert for the VA concluded his primary care physician had failed the standard of care.
She used these exact words. The VA failed to meet the standard of care, and that there was a breach, and that there's liability involved, and that the VA is looking to settle your case.
But 8 months after he filed the claim, that same VA attorney dropped a bombshell. Turns out Brian's physician was not a VA employee, but a private contractor. And under federal law, the VA is not legally responsible for negligence by contractors. So there would be no settlement.
She has a VA badge, VA scrubs, VA computer, VA business cards. Nobody would ever know the difference. They pulled the rug right out from underneath our feet, denied our claim on an employment status and a technicality.
And to make matters even worse, during the 8 months it took the VA to tell Brian that his primary care physician was not a VA employee, the California one-year statute of limitations on medical malpractice had expired, meaning he could not sue in civil court either.
I do want everyone to know that I am not anti-VA. Nobody is perfect. But when you make a catastrophic mistake, you need to be accountable for that action.
So how are you or any patient supposed to figure out whether your doctor's an independent contractor or not? And why did it take the VA 8 months to determine that Brian's doctor was an independent contractor and not a VA employee? Well, the VA won't tell us. The VA and Brian's primary care physician ignored our repeated requests for an interview. In a statement, the VA tells Eyewitness News it always strives to provide veterans with the very best health care available. When we don't meet that standard, we hold ourselves accountable. In this case, we worked with the veteran and his attorney in an effort to avoid litigation and settled this unfortunate case in a way we hope is meaningful to Mr. Talley. After months of fighting the VA, Brian did get a settlement with the help of attorney Glenn Sturdivant.
Our veterans have put their lives on the line, given up so much, sacrificed so much for our country, that they deserve the very best medical care.
Brian says the settlement was just a tiny fraction of what he calculated as his lost future earnings. He says a top VA attorney told him the payout was not intended to be commensurate with his injuries, but simply to avoid litigation risk. And there is no admission of liability. If Brian tried to sue the VA, the case would almost certainly be thrown out because, again, the VA is not legally responsible for its independent contractors.
That's really the tragedy here is the way that current federal law is set up. For somebody like Brian, there is no accountability.
We don't do enough for our veterans. They're taking care of a very cherished group of our population, our vets, and we need to take care of them. That's the bottom line.
This former Marine is on a new mission now. In Washington, D.C. recently meeting with lawmakers about his proposed tally bill to hold the VA accountable for wrongdoing.
I have a new purpose in life, and my mission now is to help protect veterans from this shameful loophole that has ruined my life.
Rob McMillan, ABC7 Eyewitness News.
Hello, I'm Mark Brown. Click the ABC7 logo to subscribe to our Eyewitness News YouTube channel.